Welcome to Impact Weather's Ask the Experts video series. I'm your host, Impact Weather Meteorologist Dave Gorham. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to talk this episode about the winter, the early cold, the early snow, but we're also going to add the business continuity aspect to a severe weather situation. And to do that, we've assembled a couple of our experts here from Impact Weather. Ed Schlichtenmyer is our business continuity guru. Thanks for being with us, Ed.
Hi, Dave.
And Fred Schmude is our long-range expert and the manager of our Stormwatch team here at Impact Weather.
Hi, Dave.
Thank you for being with us, Fred.
Yes, you're welcome.
Fred, everybody's talking about the weather, so let's start with you. The early weather that we've experienced over the last several days, the early cold here deep south, but also the early and unusual snowfall up to the north. What can you tell us about it?
Right, yeah, that's just the position of the jet stream. It's very far to the south right now this time of the year. Usually in November, it's up towards the Great Lakes and northern plains, but at times it's been as far south as the Tennessee Valley, and that's been pumping in some really cold air from Canada. As a matter of fact, this November is going to go down as one of our coldest in the past 50 years. It's going to rival some of the Novembers back in the 70s, and that's saying something. So it's been very cold, but it does look like we're going to see some milder temperatures as we get into the fourth week of November. They're not going to be as cold, probably still a little bit below normal east of the Rockies, but I'm concerned we could be setting up for a significant nor'easter as we approach the Thanksgiving holidays.
Nor'easter?
Mm-hmm,
That's a term that gets people's attention.
Yes.
It's still 2 weeks, not quite 2 weeks away,
Right.
but that's a big deal.
That's right.
All right, so that's interesting. The snowfall, you mentioned snowfall. We're talking about unusually early already, but we're looking at the next couple of weeks in terms of the nor'easter up in New England, but also lake effect in the Great Lakes. Those
Yes.
lakes are still unfrozen.
That's right. There's going to be some lake effect snow. Anytime you have those relatively mild Great Lakes, they're still unfrozen. Cold air moving across it sets up that snow belt machine from northern Ohio right through upstate New York. Could be looking at some very heavy snow the next 10 to 12 days. And another thing is down south, we could be looking at severe weather this weekend, particularly from Texas and Oklahoma on Saturday, spreading quickly east across the deep south towards the Carolinas by Sunday. Could be tornadoes, large hail, and very heavy rainfall.
Severe weather is something that a business should be preparing for, especially the tornado aspect of severe weather. But Ed, the cold is already here, the snow is already here, so a company could very easily say, I'm too late, there's no time left to prepare.
No.
Right?
Well, no, that's not true. That's not the right thing to do at all. They should be able to do all kinds of things, including looking at their communications plan to make sure all the contact information is current. They should be looking at and reviewing their office closure policy and procedures to make sure that they know who makes the call, when they make it, and how it's communicated. And they also should be monitoring their critical temperature advisory service, CTAs, which we provide here at Impact Weather, that gives several days heads up notice that they can take some actions to prepare and mitigate any kind of cold weather issues that might occur.
Fred, it's your team, the Stormwatch team, that produces those critical temperature advisories, custom tailored to a client's location.
Right, and out 6 to 7 days in the future. So for that location, identify hour by hour when those temperatures are forecast.
Very handy tool to prepare for that cold air. Ed, let's go back to you. Let's talk, one of my favorite terms is tips and tricks. I don't want to bring too much humor, tips and tricks, it doesn't sound very serious, but I'm sure you have some.
Yes, of course, and one of the biggest tips that I can think of right now is including your employees in an awareness program. Have an event where they get notified about things they should do and keep in their car, what they can expect the company in terms of notifications, office closures, and also, just as important, what the company is expecting of each employee to get in touch with their supervisor when they're ready to, and it's safe and able to do so. Lots of good things around that.
Excellent. I want to bring us back to the weather. The polar vortex is a term that the media really latched onto last year, I'm sure. Just because it's cold and it's early, they're going to latch onto it again this year. But we also see on a more regular basis, year to year to year, the polar outbreak, or the Arctic outbreak, rather.
That's right.
What's the difference between the two?
Yeah, the polar vortex is basically a normal weather feature that you see setting up in northeast Canada during the winter season. It's a very deep area of low pressure, and what I mean by that, it extends from the surface up through the upper levels of the atmosphere. So it's a driving mechanism to bring cold air south. The reason it was talked about more last year is the fact that it was shifted much farther to the south, at times towards the Great Lakes, and that brought in really cold air from Canada right down towards the Gulf Coast, and that's what kept everything so cold. I think this winter season we're going to see a very similar thing. We're going to see that polar vortex shifting a little bit farther to the south with a subtropical jet stream, which could bring in quite a bit more moisture down towards the deep south, setting up the possibility of winter storms. As far as what an Arctic outbreak is, that's basically just a piece of colder air that dries down from Canada. You don't necessarily need the polar vortex to bring that down, but it's when the polar vortex interacts with large, what we call blocking in the eastern Pacific, that's higher than normal pressure. That's when you can see a series of these Arctic air masses down towards the Gulf Coast, and you can set up a very cold winter weather pattern.
Excellent. And let's be clear, the polar vortex is not a recent term. This is not related to climate change or global warming.
No.
The polar vortex has been around since day one.
Absolutely. Right? It's a normal weather feature ever since before, and well before meteorologists, ever since the Earth started spinning.
Right.
It's been there.
Gentlemen, let's wrap this up. Let's talk about the main takeaways. Let's start with Fred, the weather, the main takeaway.
Yep, it's just make sure you stay in tune with the latest weather information. We have plenty of internet sites and weather forecasting techniques, and get that information out. We also put out a webinar series every 6 weeks or so.
Right, you and I are the host of
Yes.
that. Yeah. The webinars, by the way, are available, or the schedule for our webinars, actually, on our ImpactWeather website, impactweather.com/events. We do the websites about every 6 weeks or so, and they are free to the general public. I'm the host, you're a guest, and in the summertime we bring in our tropical expert, Chris Hebert. So we keep these webinars going year-round. Where were we? I got distracted. We were talking about the main takeaways. Ed, your turn, the main takeaway.
Yeah, my main takeaway is keeping your employees aware of what's going on. Make sure that they know that you're watching the weather and you're watching out for their safety.
And that it's not too early or too late ever to prepare. Not just for the cold, but
any event.
For any event. It's never too late to prepare. All right, well, that's it. We're going to wrap this up. I'd like to thank you for being with us. If you'd like to ask some questions about what you've listened to today, our sales department, our industry managers are ready to take your questions. You can email sales@impactweather.com. Also, we are on social media, of course, Twitter and Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. We have all of those websites mastered. Isn't that right? Yeah, mastered. But that's all we have for you right now. I'm Impact Weather Meteorologist Dave Gorham again. Stay safe, stay warm, stay dry. Bye-bye.